The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Welcome back to the show, all Cherries fans, and of course our friends from Chelsea and across the Premier League. It's good to have you with us. Now, before we get stuck in, hit the like, subscribe and the bell button below. It helps the channel to grow. We're through to the next round of the FA Cup. Of course, we did smash West Brom on Saturday at Dean Court. And for that, we have got the reward of Everton. Everton. Could have been Plymouth, could have been Exeter, could have been Doncaster Rovers. We've got Everton. Well, we do have one last trip to Goodison Park, I guess. So every cloud's got a silver lining, I guess. But this one, of course, they can get instant revenge on us. Now, of course, we are back to the Premier League this week. And, of course, a Tuesday night game. Games are coming thick and fast. We probably didn't need this game on a Tuesday night with so many injuries. But the Premier League's done it to us anyway. Now, before I do welcome on my special guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. Find out more about them, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. So, of course, we have got Chelsea and a trip to Stamford Bridge. Has been quite a good hunting ground for AFC Bournemouth, of course. Who could forget that 4-0 win? And, of course, Dan Gosling getting that very, very spectacular goal there. So it's been a happy hunting ground, or has it? We shall discuss that in a bit more detail. Chelsea, under Enzo Maresca, the former Leicester City manager, have done pretty well until recently, when they've drawn 2 and lost 2. One of those was to Everton as well, so they were probably bored to tears that day. Sorry, Everton fans, if you are watching. You have got David Moyes now, so he's not going to send you asleep anymore. Now, I do have another special guest on this show, and from the leading Chelsea channel, Chelsea FanCast, it is a pleasure to welcome back onto Up the Cherries in all departments, Chidge. Welcome back to the show, Chidge. How you doing?
I'm all right. I recovered from Christmas and the plethora of games that we all seem to be having at the moment. So yeah, I'm on good form. Good to see you again too. Thanks for inviting me on.
Not a problem at all. My pleasure, Chidge. And yes, games are coming thick and fast. Of course, we beat West Brom quite convincingly on Saturday, and you did the same with Morecambe. What did you make of that game?
Well, I think you probably did significantly better than us, given West Brom are a much better side than Morecambe. It was a weird game. I mean, they were, fair play to them. This is a side that are like 23rd or 22nd in League Two. And when I was saying before, and I was saying, if they win, this could be one of the biggest upsets of all time. I mean, it really could be. And they were just, they were really well organised, really disciplined, really well organised. Played five across the back, 4 in midfield. They got behind the ball, and they were resolute. And they also had a few chances in the first half. I mean, if Nkunku had put that penalty away after 17 minutes, I think it would have been very different. But it was I thought it was a soft penalty, although the guy clearly did put his hands up in the air, and you're not going to get away with that. And then we got a goal after about 40 minutes, and I think really we were just finding it really hard to break them down, and I think that had an awful lot to do with the tack. I mean, we had Neto on the right, and Neto's an exceptionally good player for us, has done very well. But on the left, I mean, when you play Felix and Nkunku together, and I mean, we had Gui starting, who he's very young, very raw, but I like him a lot because he runs around. He's quite a unit. He got no service, and he got no service from those two because they just want to play in the number 10 role. And it was so obvious they were getting in each other's way. And and they like to play through the middle. So, it fell into Morecambe's hands, I think. But once the first one goes in, and we got the second goal quite soon after the restart, it was game over. 3-0, and then they started to look really, really tired after 60 minutes, as I knew they would. And it became a bit of a cakewalk after that. But it was just a weird match, really. In a funny old way, it was all about them. They had 3,000 fans that had come down. It was their World Cup final, and they were loving every minute of it. I took my sister to her first ever match on Saturday, and she was most intrigued by the Morgan fest. She says, "Why are they all seeing? They're getting hammered 5-0." I said, "Well, because it's a day out for them, and they're just going to enjoy it, whatever happens." And she was like hoping they would score so they'd have something to cheer about. I said, "No, it's not how it works. It's not how it works." But look, hey, you saw Spurs yesterday. These matches can be, you can't win in a sense. So you're getting through 5-0 next round. Thank you very much. That's all you really want.
Mentioning about Spurs, actually, and I'll tell you what, just going on a bit of a diversion, as a club that have won the FA Cup, do you think that, and I did ask Adrian Charles this as well, do you think that the spirit of the FA Cup, the prestige of the FA Cup has gone, and can we actually get it back? Because I watched that Spurs game yesterday. Tamworth should have had a replay at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It would have made their football club well over £1 million, and their wage bill is less than £1 million a year. Yeah. So it would have been life-changing for that football club.
Totally agree.
And they've been robbed of it. How can we get it back?
I totally agree. I mean, Chelsea supporters, particularly of my vintage, have a huge love affair with the FA Cup. So many of people of my age, my friends, started supporting Chelsea on the back of the 1970 Cup final win, and then of course had nothing for 24 years. Well, the European Cup Winners' Cup, so 23 years until 94 when we lost to United 4-0, and then when we won it again in 97. But we love the FA Cup, and actually, I think we've won it now 8 times, which is just amazing. I mean, most of the stuff that I've seen happen in the last 25 years, I never ever thought I'd see Chelsea do. But the FA Cup remains very special in the hearts of most Chelsea fans, particularly the older ones. So it really upsets me when I see what's happened to it. And I mean, we were talking about this actually, funny enough, on Friday's show, Craig, saying, why is it we love the FA Cup so much and what's happened to it? I think the rot set in 99, 2000 when United went to play in the World Club Cup and the FA let them get away with that. But we all know why the FA Cup's getting kind of elbowed into insignificance. It's because of the Premier League. And I mean, as the European Super League reared its ugly head a couple of years ago. And I'm very proud to say, because I'm still a board member of the Chelsea Supporters Trust, but we were heavily involved, and Chelsea fans, turned up. 3,000 Chelsea fans turned up in Fulham Road before a game, and the club backed down and withdrew from it, which let it all fall down like a pack of cards. But this is where we're at. These big clubs, including ours now, we're no longer owned by by a kid playing with his train set. We're owned by effectively a private equity company. Their sole reason is to make money. They're American, so they have no cultural affinity for the game over here. Most of the big clubs are in the same boat. All they want to do is squeeze as much profit from it as they can with as little risk as they can. They'd have a European Super League tomorrow, never play. Bournemouth would be cut out of that. They'd ditch the FA Cup sooner as look at it. I mean, the entire game in this country, as you and I know it, is under massive threat, and nobody's prepared to do anything about it. And the FA Cup is kind of like the bellwether for that, I think, in a way, because the game should be at 3:00 on a Saturday. No excuses. Thursday night for Everton Peterborough, you're having a laugh. Absolute disgrace. There should be replays. Absolutely. The idea, I don't know because I didn't watch your game, but I bet you West Brom didn't put their first team out.
I think there was a lot of changes from them. Of course, there was a few changes from ourselves. It's a weird one for me because, of course, I remember going back to 2008, going out to Blythe Spartans. We was managed by Jimmy Quinn, and albeit, yes, that was a very, very painful day going out to a non-league side. It was embarrassing for this football club, and no wonder Jimmy Quinn got sacked. If that hadn't have happened, I've got to be honest, would we have stuck with Jimmy Quinn for a little bit longer? Potentially so. And then Eddie would have had less time. Could we have even gone out of the Football League? So the FA Cup has got quite that prestige for me. And I look at it this season, Chidge, as something like we would love some silverware in that cabinet. Okay, we've got the championship trophy for winning it in 2015. But we'd love to win, a major competition. The championship for me is a major competition, but we would love to win the FA Cup. Of course, we got bloody Everton in the next round, so it gives them instant chance for revenge.
Yeah, but you're better than them. You're better than them.
Oh yeah.
I would say, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the last few years, the FA Cup's been cleaned up predominantly by top six, whatever that means, clubs.
Yeah.
But I think, there are a lot of teams. Newcastle, Spurs, Villa, Bournemouth, Fulham. If you all played your best teams in this competition, I'd say you've got a really good chance. Because I'm telling you now, United, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, us will not play the strongest sides in this competition. They just won't, because it's all about finishing in the top four. And if you want to, and I have to say, I'm not digging you out here as a club, but it astonishes me that clubs who are kind of like just outside the top four, but not going to get relegated, why they don't go all out to go and win an FA Cup or a League Cup. Because I feel your pain. I went through 24 years of it. There is nothing as a football supporter that can beat winning a trophy. Even the League Cup. I remember when I was at Cardiff when we beat Liverpool when Mourinho won it. And obviously we'd won it in 98 as well. We didn't care that it was a League Cup. It was a trophy. And we went to Wembley.
Yeah.
You cannot beat it. There's nothing like winning a trophy as a supporter. It pisses on getting top four. Who cares? What you get? You don't get a trophy for it. You get more money.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about, isn't it, nowadays? And I said to Matt, the other day, I would love to go to Wembley with AFC Bournemouth and go to an FA Cup final.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that does throw me about the FA Cup, and this really does irk me, now we might get our day out at Wembley. Say, for example, we're playing, I'm just going to pick a team out of the hat here, Brighton, but we're playing them in a semi-final. I personally don't think that's right. We should be playing, if we get Brighton in the semi-final, we should be playing them at Stamford Bridge, a neutral ground. So that day out at Wembley, if we get to the final, has got even more prestige.
Totally right. Totally right. I totally agree with you. Yeah. I think it just goes to devalue it even more. The one thing I would say, about semi-finals at Wembley is, in a funny old sense. It's a bit like the League Cup. we get a much bigger allocation. If you know, for a semi-final, you know, all of the season ticket holders are going to get a ticket, guaranteed, and all of the not all of the members, but I mean, you know, a lot of members are going to get it. You know, even with the loyalty points issue, you know, you're going to get 30,000 supporters there. You know, so it's a bit like the League Cup final. I've always said it's like the People's Cup because, you know, basically you're going to get a much bigger allocation, and you know, most people who want to go can get there. With Wembley, you know, I think nearly all the season ticket holders will get a season ticket, but very few of the members, you know, because of course all the corporate stuff, it gets in the way and da 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 da. But yeah, I mean, you know, you'd have less of an allocation at Villa Park or Old Trafford or whatever, but you know, I used to love it. I mean, I've been to plenty of semi-finals across the country, and it's part of it. I think if they want to, if they're really worried about too many matches, bin off the League Cup. I mean, I love the fact that we've won it a lot of times, but you know, it was formed in the 60s. This is not, you know, it pales compared to the FA Cup, which is the oldest cup competition in the world. If you're worried about the number of games, bin that off, or just put your reserves out. You know, really, that's not the important cup competition in this country. It's the FA Cup. And the FA Cup is not just important in this country. Globally, it's a massively significant competition. And it needs to be cherished and treated with respect. And I'm afraid under the idiots who are in the FA, the charlatans at the Premier League, and the vicious, venal, money-grabbing people we've got running our football clubs, it's in jeopardy.
And guaranteed, I can tell you this for something, Chidge. I bet you Spurs, after the season is finished, will go off to Australia and play Newcastle in Brisbane just as an exhibition match, whereas Tamworth should have had that replay, you know, in a week or so's time. So
totally.
Yeah. Well, coming on to this game, so we've had our bit of a rant about the FA Cup, but of course, there was something that I did read, and actually it's with TalkSport. Of course, we are a TalkSport channel here as well. And Enzo Maresca's actually said that there's a major problem with regards to João Felix, Cole Palmer, and of course, Christopher Nkunku getting in the squad. And he's got that selection dilemma. How do you think that is solved?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, the thing is, Nkunku was originally bought to play with Jackson, slightly behind Jackson. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say as a number 10. I mean, you know, old money off the main striker. That's where he does his best work. But effectively, he's playing, you know, in the number 10's position there. Felix thinks he's a number 10. I've watched them play together only a few times, and it's just patently obvious to me that they all, you know, all those three, Palmer, Nkunku, and Felix, want to play number 10, and they just get in each other's way. And it's comedic and criminal at the same time. Now, as I said, Nkunku was bought before we bought Palmer, and then he got injured in pre-season. So that was very unfortunate. So we never really got to see him in the role he was meant for. And then Palmer turns up, was playing on the right, and then suddenly moved in the middle and has been brilliant. Although, actually, last season, he played a lot of the time on the right and was fantastic on the right. So he can play anywhere, really. But he's the best player at the club. So if he wants to play number 10 and he's effective there, you play him at number 10. So that's a problem for Nkunku. You play Nkunku as the striker, he's not as effective. Felix, I actually thought he had a pretty good game yesterday, but then again, he was playing against Morecambe. You know, I'd like to see him play like that against City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and I fear that we won't, because I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, the way I see it at the moment, to answer the question that you actually asked me, I don't think you can play those three together, because I don't think that Felix or Nkunku have the discipline to accommodate Palmer playing number 10. You know, you stick Felix out left or Nkunku out left, they're going to come inside. And I just don't think that works. However, what I would like to see, you know, if Felix, because he's got talent. I mean, he has got talent. The question mark over him is that he doesn't have any consistency. And he's gone to Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and they binned him off. And there's got to be a reason for that. So, you know, I just think there's something stopping him from being the elite player that he looks on occasions. But if in a perfect world, what we might have seen yesterday is that if Palmer gets injured, we've got somebody who can play in that position and create goals and score goals, because that's what Palmer gives you. He creates goals and he scores goals. And really, we don't have enough players in the side and the squad that can do that consistently. So, I think out of the two, I think Felix, for me, has perhaps got more potential to be the replacement for Palmer if he gets injured or suspended. I'm not sure about Nkunku. I just get this feeling that he, although he's supposed to be able to play out wide and in the middle and up front, we've just not seen the best of him, and I think he's fed up with it. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to PSG. I know that that's just a rumor, but I wouldn't be surprised. He looks like a player who doesn't want to be playing there, whereas Felix looks like a player who's trying very hard to prove that he can be useful.
Of course, you did mention Cole Palmer as well, and Cole Palmer, I personally, has got to be up there, if not the contender for Player of the Season this year. He's been absolutely fantastic. I know he does that chilly celebration, but he has been absolutely sizzling this year, hasn't he, Chidge?
I mean, he was brilliant last year, and it was right out of the blue. None of us expected that, of course, and he kind of got in by default because somebody got injured, and suddenly we had this amazing talent on our hands. And I mean, he's finding it harder this year because he's finding that he's being marked by 2, 3, sometimes 3 players. So he's not getting the space. He's getting kicked a lot. He's getting targeted. Some gnarly teams are kicking him very early, and then another player kicks him. It's all very cynical and very clever.
Yeah.
But it's not. This is not new. I remember Leeds United famously used to do this in the 60s and the 70s. They would foul by rotation, so they wouldn't get a yellow card. So it's nothing new. So he's finding it a bit harder. I think other players need to step up because, if 2 or 3 players are on him for most of the game, then that should leave space for others to exploit. And I don't really see a lot of evidence in that. But you're right. He is an astonishing talent. He's got no fear. And I think that's, apart from his huge skill, that's the other thing about him that you've got to admire. He's just fearless. I mean, we've been a bit ropey for a while, actually, in the league, as I'm sure you're aware. But the Palace game, he did a pass to Jackson that, and this is the thing about players like this, it doesn't matter what team you support, you love players like this, don't you? That pass, you get up out your seat and you go, whoa, because it was just something amazing. And it was like a 40-yard pass through the lines, pinpoint for Jackson, who then, of course, muffed it up. But, players that can do that is why we go. It's why we pay the money. And he is absolutely fantastic. Hopefully, even with all the attention on him from the other sides this year, he's still banging the goals and assisting. So if he carries that on for the second half of the season, one would hope he would get the Player of the Year. It'd be lovely to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, to be honest, he is the logical choice at the moment. He is the logical choice for that.
I don't know. Salah, I suspect, will probably get it. Sentimental reasons. And they all love Liverpool, don't they?
Yeah, and especially if Liverpool do win the league. But you was putting up a really, really good fight and a real good title challenge, which come a little bit out of the blue because nobody really knew. I know when we did our preview earlier on in the season, nobody really knew what sort of Chelsea they were going to get. He started all right, but he's really carried that on until recently. And of course, the last 4 games, the Everton 0-0 at Goodison Park, to be honest, they probably bored you to fucking tears, Chidge, like they did us. So let's be honest, that, we managed to actually get the goal in the end, but it was like pulling teeth out watching that game. But then there was that defeat at home to Fulham and that defeat against Ipswich. What's kind of gone wrong in these past 4?
It's a good question because it looks from the outside looking in like the wheels have totally fallen off. I think the reality is something different, actually. It's more like old problems rearing their head again. The Everton game, I actually still think was a decent point. We have a terrible record up at Goodison Park. They'd just come off the back of drawing 0-0 against Arsenal at the Emirates. So, they're a tough nut to crack. And you kind of need it to go your way, and it didn't really for us. The Fulham game was an absolute joke. We were all over them like a rash for about 40, 50, 60 minutes. And then they changed their tactics. They came at us. And the thing about us, really, which has never gone away, is that we are always capable of making a horrendous rick to let the opposition back in, gift them a goal. Sanchez, might play it out the back to somebody, to an opponent. Dizazi might, stick one in his own net. There's an accident waiting to happen all the time defensively. That's never really gone away. And up front, we can be really, really, really wasteful. Jackson needs about 4 or 5 chances to score. Palmer is obviously very reliable, but if he's being closed down, and as I said, teams are targeting him, and if you take him out of the equation, we're a much different side. Enzo, as a midfielder, doesn't score enough goals. The wingers aren't scoring enough goals. Sancho doesn't score he scored a cracker against Tottenham that brought us back into the game, but he doesn't score regularly. Neto's not scoring regularly. So, if Palmer's shut down and it's left to the others, they're just not clinical enough. And we don't have enough goals coming from midfield. So that gives the opposition a chance. And Fulham, and I think the other thing is, and this is what worries me about Saturday, Tuesday, you talk about not knowing what games you're on, Tuesday night with you lot, is that you are the kind of team that can cause us problems at home because you're very direct, which means, we'll push up and play a high line, because we'll probably have a lot of the possession. You can be very direct, but you'll also press us. You will get at us. And if you press Chelsea's defence, they often crack. So it's a worry. So that's what's really been happening. And I mean, Fulham, as I said, we were cruising and we threw it away. Defensive lapse in the last minute, bosh. Ipswich caught us cold and they just came at us and they wanted it more and they bullied us. And we can be bullied as a team as well. And they were very good for their 2-0. Palace was just a repeat of the Fulham game. We were all over them like a rash. Should have put the game to bed in the first half. Should have been 3-0 up easily. We go in 1-0 up. They come right at us in the second half, put us on the back foot, and then we're hanging on, and then they score. So these things have been prevalent in the Chelsea squad for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So it's nothing new. I just think we went through a period where the ball was going in the net. We were getting 2 or 3 up. The game was safe, and we were in total control, and it made a big difference. And we went on a really good run doing that. So I don't think the wheels have come off totally. I do wonder if the confidence might have been knocked a bit. And I also think that Maresca going around telling anybody who's prepared to listen that we weren't going to win the title and we're not good enough. I mean, if you've been watching this game long enough, you know that the last thing you do is give players an excuse. Yeah. And he gave a young side an excuse not to perform. And guess what? Since he started saying that, they haven't performed very well generally.
Well, earlier on in the season, of course, you did beat us at Dean Court.
But we're lucky to.
A lot of people have said that. But we were, as you said, with regards to your front line, we were very, very wasteful that day. Evan Nilsson, of course, had just joined the club, and did miss a hatful of chances, albeit we did win that penalty. The penalty wasn't very good, though, really, was it?
No.
But what did you make of Bournemouth that day? Because I think, from what you've said, and that high press was there, wasn't it, in that match?
Well, again, I mean, I thought you had the better of the match. I thought you did exactly what I know a Bournemouth side under your manager will do, which is to come at you, be very direct, press hard and high. And you missed a hatful of chances, and the penalty was terrible. So, we hung on in there. I'll say that we hung on in there, and Nkunku, who I've been really rude about tonight, got us out of jail. But I remember, I wasn't there because, as you know, it's hard to get tickets for Bournemouth away. But, I did come away thinking, yeah, we mugged you basically, which is nice because normally it's the other way around. or you hammer us. That's how it goes, isn't it?
Of course, we do have a very, very good record at Stamford Bridge. I don't want to, rub your nose in it, Chidge. But of course, we've had some really, really good games at Stamford Bridge. But this time round, and I've just mentioned him there, Evan Nilsson. He was very fresh, very wasteful. in that game against Chelsea. He's been very good recently, but he's injured. He's
Is he?
understudy. NSU now, ACL. We have got an injury crisis,
So
but
I'm led to believe, yeah.
it didn't look like that on Saturday against West Brom. To be honest, it showed that Dongo Tuatara could play in that position. Of course, Semenyo can play in that position, and Clivert as well can be put up there. So there is some real threats. Are you concerned about this bad run of form extending to fifth, or do you think those injuries are a little bit of music to your ears?
You know what? They are a little bit. I mean, Clivert's he'll play, and he's a decent player. Christie and Cook are always, good. They're good Premier League pros now. I mean, this is the thing about Bournemouth. They've got some good, experienced Premier League pros there. I think the manager's a good manager. I mean, we do this thing called the Prem Predictions League, and predict against Bournemouth at your peril is what I've discovered there. They often beat teams you just don't expect them to beat. So, you can't take Bournemouth lightly. I mean, you're only 3 points behind us in the league. I mean, you're seventh for a reason, Yeah. So I will certainly not be taking this lightly, but I do think the fact that you've got injuries to the attack and the defence might just swing it for us. Because, I mean, remember, we will, I mean, out of the side that he picked against the mighty Morecambe, I reckon you may only see 2 players that started that match starting for us. So that means he can make 9 changes and the players should be fresh. I mean, I know Cucurella came on and Gusto. I think they'll start for us. And Tozin and Neto will be the guys that I was talking about. But the rest, he's just sweet. And Sancho came on, didn't he? But basically, you've got Fernandes and Caicedo, who didn't play a minute on Saturday, and Jackson and Palmer. They would have all had a rest. So I think that gives us the edge. I mean, if it was before we, got 2 points out of 12, I'd have said, I actually fancy us because we're playing really, really well. Whereas having seen the rot that's been dished up since, I would be going, this is, if Bournemouth are on it and they do what they normally do, this could be a really tough match. As I said, the fact that you've got injuries in attack and defence, I think makes me sway more towards. Well, I feel more confident, put it that way, but not a hammering. I mean, I think there'll be a goal in it. It could be a 1-0, 2-1.
Yeah, I think, of course, we have got a good track record up at Stamford Bridge. Some historical games.
Craig, you say that, and I mean, yeah. I would normally go, oh, bloody bogey team. Actually, the stats don't back that up. The last time you beat us, period, was in 2019.
Yep.
So that's quite.
Dan Gosling.
Yeah, I mean that was the 1-0. Okay, I mean that 4-0. That was that 4-0 was basically after Conte had thrown his dummy out.
Yeah.
Because of Costa, and they were abysmal. I thought the 3-0 at the Bridge, you were superb. But yeah, I mean, and of course you beat us in 2015. But it's been quite a while since you've beaten us. Actually, I mean, 5-6 years now. So maybe not the bogey side you once were.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, we do become a bogey side again. But we shall see. We shall see. Final question, Chidge. I just wanted to throw this to you. Of course, Liverpool are 10 points ahead. They have got this game in hand against the very mighty Everton, of course, now managed by David Moyes, after we managed to help Sean Dyche out the door.
Poor old Sean Dyche.
Sean Dyche. To be honest, he was never really nice to us when he was at Burnley.
Wasn't he?
To be honest, yeah, I'm a bit like that's a Sean Dyche.
No, well, fair enough. Fair enough.
But you are 10 points behind. But Liverpool sometimes do have this wobble. Can you see this wobble in them? And more importantly, can you see Chelsea being consistent enough to actually force your way into that if they do?
I can see any of the top sides having a wobble, and the wobble will be caused by injuries and suspensions. Yeah. And the amount of matches, because they're all in Europe. I mean, City, Although, of course, that might change going forward. But City have had terrible injuries, and blow me, their form went to pot. I think there may be something else going on with them as well, but you can say that. Newcastle had horrible injuries. Their form dropped. They got their people back, and now they're going up the table. Arsenal look like they're imploding at the moment, but they've lost Saka, and they've had other injuries as well. I think the point is that very few sides in the league can really withstand 3-4 key players being out. So anybody's and then there's always the form issue. So anybody's capable of a wobble. I do not see us. I mean, without sounding like Maresca, I don't see us winning the title this year. And the reason for that is exactly what you were saying. It's consistency. I just don't think we've got this year, what Maresca has done is he's forging us into more of a team. We look more like a team. For the last few seasons since Bowley's come in, it's all looked like a bunch of individuals that have been thrown together, i.e. exactly what it is. Yeah. But actually Maresca's making them look like a team, and I'm liking that. And they're beginning to play quite well. They're beginning to get used to how he wants them to play. But they're young, and they will make mistakes, and that's what we're seeing. And of course, the one thing you get from youngsters is you get inconsistency. And they don't know how to close a game out. I mean, all the games that we were talking about earlier, the Fulham, the Ipswich, the Palace.
Yeah.
Certainly Fulham and Palace, they should have won both those games. They do not know how to manage a game out. They do not know how to close it out. I think some of that has to be on the manager, to be fair, but I do think it just shows you their youth, the naivety, the inconsistency, the lack of leadership, particularly. So, I mean, you go and talk to most Chelsea fans at the moment, and of course it's transfer window time. The older ones amongst us will nearly always say what we need in this team is some experience and some leadership. And that is exactly what the sporting directors will not do. If they buy anybody, they'll be about 19, 20, 21, so they have resale value and potential. But actually, I mean, when we were in the title race before we started losing, we were all saying then, we were saying, if a good club now, they go and buy a couple of gnarly old experienced pros who could help get them over the line in the second half of the season. It's the last thing that this Chelsea will do. If they buy, they'll buy young. They won't buy anybody experienced, and they certainly won't be buying anybody with leadership. And I'm afraid that's the one thing we need at the moment.
And to be honest, we do buy young, but we have, as you said, Ryan Christie, Lewis Cook.
Yeah, good old pros.
Good pros. They're not old players, but they're experienced at this level. And you look at Adam Smith. Now, Adam Smith, of course, he's lost his pace a bit, but he's very, very clever, and he will drop off. And he will. A couple of seasons ago, I watched him against Brighton, and he was getting really close to Matoma and was being turned all the time. And I thought, he's lost it. What Iriola has done is made him just drop back a little bit further. And you can see it drop back a little bit further, gives that player a little bit more time on the ball, but also makes those positions that he can get that ball into a little bit narrower as well. Get his other teammates, be it Zabania or Senesi or Dean Howson, in there to actually help cover him as well. And it's worked. It's worked a treat. And that's what an experienced player brings you.
Absolutely.
And I can understand. Do you think that this Chelsea team, is probably for next season really more than this?
Yes, I do, but we still. I think we're still missing. It's to go and win a title. I think we need a better goalkeeper. Mm-hmm. We need an experienced centre back.
Yeah.
I still don't think we have Lavia, I think, is a very good player, and I think he can play in that defensive midfield position. But he gets injured a lot, which worries me. So I think there's a gap there. And there's definitely, Jackson's stats are good, but I watch him play every week, and it takes him 4 or 5 chances to score. And really, if you're going to win a title, you need somebody who's going to guarantee you 20, 25 goals, not mucking about. So we're still 3 or 4 key players light, I think, in terms of challenging for a title. But, if these guys continue on, this is the thing. I think the trajectory is in the right way. Actually, we saw that last season. Pochettino gets a lot of stick, but had a dreadful first half to the season. And the second half of the season was very, very good. I think we were one of the best. I think we got one more points than most other teams if you went from January. And actually, funnily enough, that was largely because he got a lot of injuries and he actually didn't have much choice about the 11 he picked, because I think he was really struggling with having so many players there. But once he got a consistent kind of best 11, they started performing really well. And the trajectory's carried on from then. I think Maresca's basically doing a pretty good job. So, yeah, maybe, with the number of players that we've got, given another year or two playing together, adding a few good players, I don't see why we shouldn't be. I think a lot of the fears that a lot of teams have, that because we're such a young side, if they do grow together and they keep improving together, then we could be a real threat.
Just need another John Terry, really.
Well, a Petr Cech, a John Terry, an Ashley Cole, a Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba would be wonderful, wouldn't it, really? But
yeah,
it ain't happening with this club. Those days are gone.
What a side that was.
Well, I just, look, I've been around the block a long time. I've seen us being woeful and not winning anything. So when you've seen that, you realise how privileged you were to see players like that play for your club. And I think the other nice thing is to see players like that play for your club for such a long time. They were all at the club for a long time. And that's just a joy, isn't it? That's what we all love as football fans.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on again, Chidge.
Pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure, and all the very, very best for the rest of the season, of course, after Tuesday night.
Of course. I wish you no luck for tomorrow at all, but I mean, you're 7th at the moment. There's no reason why you can't keep on a push there and, maybe get a place in Europe. So good luck with that. And lovely to see you again, Craig. Enjoyed it as always.
Yeah, likewise, Chidge. Thank you so much.
Cheers, mate.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, hit the like, subscribe, the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. See, I rhyme. I do it for free. Do go check out all of our other interviews. Now, of course, I did interview Adrian Charles last week. A really good interview with him on the FA Cup and, of course, West Bromwich Albion. So go check that out. We've also had Omid Jalili. Yes, Chelsea fans, he is a Chelsea fan, but he also has a soft spot for Ipswich Town as well, as you'll find out if you go and watch that video. We've had Tiff Nadell, and of course Tiff also took me round Thruxton at 100 miles per hour, and it scared me stiff for about a couple of minutes, but I tell you what an experience. You got to do that. We've also had members of the bands Kasabian, Five, Hard-Fi, the Blue Tones, The Farm, Happy Mondays. Who else have I forgot? Ocean Colour Scene, Dodgy. Have I named two twice? I probably have, but there we are. They're all in the interview section, so go check them out. And also, this is another very spectacular interview. We've also had, of course, Matt Letizia, and we've also had David Icke on this show. Of course, the conspiracy theorist in some people's minds. So go check that out. Now, of course, like I say, we do memberships here as well. So if you do want to join the channel, you can click join. You will be in the end card once we get that all set up and running. And I've got enough people to fill that. So feel free to get involved in that as well. And like I say, check out all of our other shows as well. The cherry picking a couple of weeks back, we actually had Mark Pugh and Neil Meldrum on talking about that historic season in 2015. And of course, we've also had Paul Beverston on recently as well, talking about the first part of this season. So the half-term report. There we go. Well, until the next show, thank you for joining us. The cold is now gone. The cold is now lifted. So I do sound a little bit more sprightly, but up the cherries. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you for joining us.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.